Hello everyone, welcome back. It's the Technician's Guide to Terraria's Expert Mode, Episode 2. I'm Enigmas, and today we're going to be focusing most of our attention on the arena that we're building to deal with the large events involving multiple monsters that just kind of spawn and spawn and spawn either until a certain amount of time has elapsed or until you've killed a certain number of them. It's nice to have something set up as early as possible to deal with that, and there's also going to be some applications for it in some of the bosses that we're going to be fighting as well. Before we get into that, there's a couple of things we'll take a look at. First of all, a couple bosses have died since the last episode. It was completely unplanned, and I would go so far as to say unnecessary, but it happened anyways. The first, and this actually surprised me, I was down in the underworld doing a little bit of terrain adjustment, and the monster that carries the spawn item for the Wall of Flesh, which is a significant boss in the grand scheme of things, died near me somehow. Might have been my fault. The spawn item fell into the lava, which is how you trigger the spawn. The Wall of Flesh spawned, and I wasn't about to run away or let him kill me or anything like that. So yeah, this is what happened. So then I felt kind of silly because I had killed the Wall of Flesh. The reason why it's significant, for those of you who maybe haven't played the game or haven't played it very far in terms of defeating the bosses, is when you defeat the Wall of Flesh, a lot of things in the game change. A lot of monsters start to spawn that didn't spawn before. They tend to hit harder and have more health than previously. A new series of bosses becomes available to fight. It's called transitioning to hard mode. That area after you've killed the Wall of Flesh, it's considered that you're in the hard mode of the game. Whether you selected a normal or expert world difficulty, it's a whole different layer of difficulties. There's hard mode, expert, hard mode, normal, blah blah. Bottom line, we're in hard mode now, whether we want it to be or not. So I decided, you know what we need to do? We might as well just backtrack a little bit and kill some of the bosses that we should have killed on our way here before we killed the Wall of Flesh. So I went after the Brain of Cthulhu, who would have been the, I think, the Eater of Worlds. In a Corruption world, it's the Eater of Worlds, it's a big worm. In a Crimson world, it's the Brain of Cthulhu, which is a big brain. And it died too. So that kind of leaves us in a bit of a spot. I realized, you know, it's kind of frustrating if you're a viewer and we're talking about making all of these mechanisms to kill bosses and we just keep killing them with the Terrarian. I absolutely appreciate that maybe that's not the most interesting thing to be watching. So, to make it up to you, what we're going to do is we're going to use the mechanisms that we have planned to kill the Destroyer of Worlds, which is a great big mechanical worm, and the Twins, which is a pair of mechanical eyes, and Skeletron Prime, which is a gigantic mechanical skeleton. Then we're going to kill all three of them at once. There's an achievement for that, and we're definitely going to be using a mechanism of some kind to do that. So there's a little bit of a bonus in there to make up for the easy mode bosses that just kind of melted because they decided to show up at the wrong time. So that's the bosses. The gear spotlight that we're going to be looking at today is, you see it right beside my character. It's this, and it's oriented specifically this way so that you can see what it's supposed to be, which is a heart that's been ripped out of somebody's body, and it's spewing blood out of the severed artery coming out of the top of the heart, which is kind of creepy. It emits a little bit of light. That's its significance as an item or a pet or whatever, is it gives off a little bit of light. Not that I need it, because my armor and my wings and stuff glow anyways, but as, you know, pets go, this one's a little bit more on the useful side. But one thing that I noticed almost immediately when I equipped it is because it actually spawned like this. It doesn't look like a heart anymore. It looks like a little red bum spewing a constant stream of red diarrhea, which to me is maybe a little bit more interesting than the heart. I mean, how can you pass up a pet like that? How many games can you say that you have a pet that's a little red bum with constant red diarrhea spewing all over the place? That's what it is. I think it actually came from the Brain of Cthulhu, but I'm not 100% sure. I just know it's a relatively recent addition, and the fact that it gives off light is kind of a bonus. Now, you saw maybe a little bit of a hint of what's coming, and I'm going to show you guys this not because it's such an impressive contraption to have a little door like this, but because it illustrates how the actuators that we're going to be talking about up in the arena work. You can see we've got basically a tunnel going down here past all the rows of the housing and then into the crafting area, or we can go up through here to get to the housing. The bottom line is we needed an entrance to get into our facility, and having it too wide just wasn't large enough. So I decided I wanted to make it larger. I made it 4 wide. We've got pressure plates on either side of this white door. We're calling it a door. It's just 4 white blocks. We've got another pressure plate on this platform right here. So if we come across here and we step on a pressure plate, there's actuators on there that you can kind of see here. They're the little gold things on top of the red wires. When they receive that signal, they pull the blocks into the background so you can pass through them. And then if you give them another signal, it pushes them back to the foreground so that you can't pass through them anymore. It's a really secure way to make doors and things in the game where you don't want monsters to be able to get through them, but you want to be able to get through them quickly and easily. So you can see when we fell through and stepped on the pressure plate, it pushed them to the foreground so that we can't get through it, and then when we want to leave, we go like that. You can see it's in the background, and then we step on it, we can close it behind us. Really simple and easy, but the important thing here is that we're showing you how the actuators work in terms of pulling things into the background so that things can pass over them. That's very, very important. And if we go up here, this is a little bit different from the way it was when we were here in the last episode. The last episode, I'll stand right here and I'll show you. If you saw the last episode, you saw that we had the teleporter boxes. You see the teleporter pads in each of these guys here. This guy up here. If I stand in this spot right on the platform that I'm on in between these 2 dark blocks, I'll always be dead center in the middle of all these boxes. I'll be kind of right on the very edges of the screen, which is, it's more of a construction aid to kind of keep things visualized in terms of what's going to be on screen and not on screen when we're fighting, which is important when we're trying to control where and how the monsters that you're fighting are spawning. So we've got that set up, and then we've added a bunch of things. Things going on here. You can see we've got a roof going across the whole thing here. And it's got lava on top of the roof. Monsters can't spawn in lava unless they're in the underworld. In our case, that's absolutely fine. We just want to make sure that if there's going to be monsters spawning somewhere, it's going to be somewhere that we can hit them with traps. So by putting lava in this roof thing here, we don't have to worry about monsters spawning up on the roof and taking up the count of active numbers of monsters that we're allowed to have. Everything's going to spawn where it's allowed to spawn, which won't be up here. We could put other things in here that are on screen. Monsters won't spawn in them because they won't spawn unless they're off screen. So we've got the roof taken care of. We've got these 2 great big reservoirs of lava. Again, monsters can't spawn in lava, so they wouldn't be able to spawn on top of this little switch room. This is where we have the timers that do the sequential thing for the teleporters. And also the teleport pad room here. Monsters can't spawn on any of that if we'd moved off to the side a little bit, like for example like that. If we had the box that the teleporter is in on this side here, monsters would be able to spawn on that. And then where would they go? Well, they'd probably try and jump across here and be a pain in the ass, but the bottom line is they wouldn't be in here with all of the traps, and that's kind of a no-no. And then over here is exactly the same thing. Another reservoir of lava. Monsters can't spawn there. We're just controlling the spawn criteria, I guess you could say. But in addition to that, something that I'm still working on, there's still a couple of things that aren't working the way they're supposed to, but we've got pumps now. We've built pumps into this whole thing. This is the wiring setup for everything that we're doing here. This is the setup that we showed in the last episode. This is the setup that we're going to show you today using the bird engine to trigger the wires. And then we've got wires that go from in the lava here, where they're actually attached to pumps. You can't see it because the pumps are in the lava and the lava won't let you see it. And they come up here and the wires connect to these pumps up here. Lava flows from the ones down here up to these ones, because these ones are inlet pumps and these ones are outlet pumps. And the lava flows through the wires. Yeah, it's not my system, that's just the way they work. It flows through the wires and then it pours out here in a constant stream if we can provide enough lava to the pumps down here, so that it makes like a lava curtain so that monsters that maybe want to spawn in the air, and there will be plenty of those, and want to come harass us, have to fly through the lava to get there, which is kind of neat that we're able to set that up. We're doing the same thing over here. There's something not quite working with the wiring over here. I'll just point that out now. They start off, when you turn on the machine, they pump a little bit of lava and then they just stop. So there's a bit of a short circuit somewhere that I'll figure out. We have to do some tuning with this system with the lava. First of all, you can see there's lava up to here on this side, and there's lava up to here on this side. And what I would like to do is have a self-leveling system in place so that these guys will always sort of maintain the same level no matter what's going on. But in addition to that, there's a bit of a mechanic at play where the pumps down here suck in a certain amount of lava, and the ones out here obviously pour that lava out, but they pour out more than was taken in. So over time, the volume of lava in your reservoirs will steadily increase, and if you haven't accounted for that in a system like this, it will eventually start to spill over and cause problems. So for example, this is already set up so that it'll spill out over this side before it spills down into the kill box, because we don't want lava in the kill box, because it'll destroy a lot of the loot that we could potentially get. And there's a leftover red wire here. We're just gonna grab that. But we have to set up something so that it's doing something with the lava and it's not just spilling out over onto the ground. We want to make sure it's a little bit better controlled than that. I'm not 100% clear on how I'm going to do that just yet, but we will eventually be doing something that's better than just letting it go. That's all the stuff that's happening out of the side. So we're going to have lava curtains down the side so that things that want to get through have to go through the lava. We have the roof taken care of so things can't get through, obviously, or spawn in the lava up there. And that leaves us with this contraption down here. And this is why I was showing you the actuators previously, is because all of these traps I placed and then put an actuator on them and put a wire to the actuator and then flipped a switch so that all of these traps got pulled into the background. And then I removed the actuators so that now I can apply a pulse to any of these traps. It'll cause the trap to fire, but it won't push the trap back into the foreground. So these guys are permanently in the background unless I decide that I don't want them to be anymore. But it's set up in such a way so that all of these traps can fire and not run into the back of one another or limit me from where I can go, or the monsters from, you know, where things can go. You can see I'm flying right through them. They're there, they work, but they're basically insubstantial. So I guess we'll do a quick tour of what the traps are, and then we'll turn it on and let you see how it works. Because once it starts going, there's no concentration to be had. It's just a mess. So we've got 4 columns in this side, 1, 2, 3, 4 of super dart traps. All of these guys are super dart traps, and they fire that way. Over on this side is the same thing, 4 columns, and they fire this way. And then the 4 traps in the front column on each side, are flame traps that spew basically a geyser of flame across almost to the middle. There's a little bit of a gap you'll see when we fire it up where the flames don't overlap. There's just a little gap, but it's not big enough that I'm about to go pulling things apart and trying to reorganize them so that they meet together perfectly. There's a lot of flames. That's really all we need to know. So we got super dart traps, flame traps up here. Starting from the bottom, if you count your way up, there's 6 spear traps, and they fire spears, or they're basically retractable spears that they push out down to the floor, and then they pull them back up, and then they push out again and then back up, and it's just constantly down and up for the spears. And then starting from the 7th spot, directly on top of the spear traps, and the 3 rows above, staggered like this, are spiky ball traps, which drop spiky balls that bounce around in the kill box, and after a certain amount of time they disappear, and then another wave of balls falls and they bounce around in the kill box, and then they disappear, and it's just on and on and on, over and over and over again, until everything's dead or you are. It's just, you turn it off, and that's the kill box. And you'll see, we're just going to do very quickly, we're going to show you the bird engine that's controlling everything so that they don't all fire at once. Carefully get ourselves up in there. So you have a bird statue, and when we apply a pulse to it from this timer here, it spawns a bird, and it will spawn up to 3 birds because it's restricted to a small area. If we were working in a larger area, the birds could disperse more and it would spawn more birds. But in this case, we're going to get 3, and the birds are all going to fly up towards the ceiling, and then they're going to be trapped, and they're going to fly back and forth. And each time they kind of dip a little bit, they're going to hit a pressure plate. There's 6 pressure plates here, and when it hits a pressure plate, it's going to trigger something over here. So we've got 6 pressure plates, so there's 2 for each colored wire, so we can stagger the firing of the traps as much as we possibly can. We don't want them all necessarily firing in groups and things of that nature. And what it looks like is that. I wouldn't call it particularly complex because we haven't got a lot of junctions and things going different places. We've got 3 different colored wires, and we're intersecting them at various different places so that we can get to all the different traps that we want to trigger. It's really nothing more complicated than that. It took a little while. I made a couple mistakes when I was wiring it, but really it's just about making sure that all of the traps have a wire on them, and then making sure that you're happy with the wires that are signaling what thing to do what, when, and how is connected to the pressure plate under the bird with the physics and possibly some chemistry and biology to make it work. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. But my favorite part of this whole setup is this trap here. This is a dart trap, just the basic version of the dart trap. When I turn it on, it's going to fire, which is no big deal because there's nothing in there. But then when I turn off this whole thing, if you just leave the birds flopping around, the traps won't turn off. So when you hit the switch to turn it off, the dart trap will fire again and it kills all the birds. And then it turns. That's how we turn it off. Alright, so let's fire it up and see what it looks like. There's 1, 2, 3 birds. And then this is the kill box. See, it's all nicely contained into a rectangle from about like that, and then down, and then across, and then up. If monsters go into the sides like this, it's not that big of a deal. They won't get hit by the spears or the fire, but they'll still get hit by darts and spiky balls, so it's not that big of a problem. It's just not a good place for monsters to be. It's not a good place for us to be either, but we aren't going to be spending a lot of time down there if we can avoid it. You can see spears going down. You can see the spiky balls bouncing around. As soon as they disappear, it'll be almost instantaneous. The next wave will, yeah, see, gets dropped down. The darts are firing. They're nicely staggered for the most part at times. Right now they're not, but sometimes they are, and it's quite, there we go. This side is staggering them pretty well. You see there's a bit of a gap between each dart. This one, it's got more of a formation going on. And then up here, you can see we've got the beginnings of what I was talking about with the lava curtain, and again, a little bit of an opportunity to tune it a little bit better. I'm not exactly sure what specific changes we're going to make so that this one works a little bit better, but you can see anything that wants to get to me in here on this platform is going to have to go through up to 3 specific rivers, waterfalls of lava falls, I guess you would call them. And it's just more damage on the monsters before I have to start thinking about them is really all it is. It's not saying that this is going to be the death of anything that tries to come through it, but it is to say anything that comes through it is not going to be at full health when it gets to me. And you can see running over here just very quickly. See, we've already got a few victims. This guy is just turned off. So we're going to have to figure out exactly what's causing that. I think I might know what it is, but we'll get it sorted out for sure. And then we'll get it tuned a little bit better so that the lava is working nicely on both sides. And then this is going to be where we do most of the fights for the mechanical bosses, I think. I can't see us having to go too far away or do anything too crazy or outlandish with the mechanical bosses. We'll do each of them one at a time. The Destroyer of Worlds is just going to have a miserable time with this whole thing. And then we'll do all 3 at once, simultaneously. It could be a very interesting time. So if you want to be notified when I add the next video and the videos that follow, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel. Or you can follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information box below the video. Leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.